I've worn this exact same shirt in a previous episode, 51, which I usually try very hard not to do, except for some specific occasional special circumstances, of which this is not one. I just happened to already be wearing this shirt today, and I didn't want to go change because I couldn't be bothered. Baka, ooh, hey, Manga Tuesday. Welcome back to Manga Tuesday. Episode 116. I am the DRC, and today we shall be reviewing Koakuma Meringue, also known as the Pretty Little Devil Meringue. Koakuma Meringue is a short 12-chapter series that starts off as a 4-koma and partway through becomes not a 4-koma, and it's created by the same creator who created Non Non Biyori, Mr. Atto himself. Also, there's a character from Non Non Biyori in this manga, Hikiji, but this manga came first, but she has the same name and a very similar design, specifically later on, but canonically, I don't think it can be the same character, because story-wise, that doesn't make sense, but I guess he really liked Hikiji, like I really like Hikiji, my favourite Non Non character, so, you know, blah, 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 blah. That's the whole reason I wanted to read Koakuma Meringue, because I'm a huge fan. I love Non Non Biyori, and this is only 12 chapters long, not a huge investment of time, just a quick little read. I might as well check it out and see what it's like. And I had no idea what I was getting myself into. So, a couple of days ago, I started reading Koakuma Meringue in preparation for this review, and I got 8 chapters in, and then I clicked onto the next chapter, chapter 9, and to my surprise, I saw in front of me chapter 8 again, which was confusing, must have been an error on the site, so I clicked on to chapter 10, and then I got some random nonsense, and then I looked and saw there was like hundreds of chapters, and the rest were all random nonsense though. So I moved on to some other site that had Koakuma Meringue, and lo and behold, it also only had 8 chapters, and all the sites I looked at that had scanlations of this manga all only had 8 chapters, except for the occasional one that had 9 chapters, but that 9th chapter was just a repeat of chapter 8. We have a big problem here, folks. Looking at the My Anime List page of Koakuma, at the very bottom where they have chapter discussions for any manga you look up there were only chapter discussions up to chapter 8, and these were all from many years ago. Thus, I came to the conclusion, for some reason the scanlation stopped at chapter 8. There was another 4 chapters that remained unscanlated, untranslated, unable for me to access, and this was a massive problem. If I was unable to finish reading Koakuma, then I would be unable to give it a complete, thorough, satisfactory review, and that was not acceptable. And more importantly, if I was unable to finish reading it, I would be unable to mark it completed on my anime list. I would be forced to put the manga on hold and leave it on the on hold section, and this was a fate worse than death. I had had something similar like this happen to me once before, the manga High School Girls, of which originally there were only 9 volumes, of which have all been published in English, and I tracked them down and spent copious amounts of money to track down these out-of-print manga, and I got all of them, and I read all of them, to discover that the mangaka who made it, after years, decades of not making the manga, decided to randomly come back and make like another 4 volumes or something, of which none have been published in English, none have been translated, scanlated, and put up online anywhere. These manga are unable to be found or read, and so I am unable, to this day, am unable to mark High School Girls as completed on Mal, and it haunts me, but I will not allow it to happen again. I am determined. I will read the final 4 chapters of Koakuma Meringue if my life depends on it, because it does. So now, there was only one thing to do. Purchase a physical copy of the Japanese volume of Koakuma Meringue. But I instantly found myself hit with another roadblock. Not only was this manga incredibly hard to find, but any copies I could find for sale were ridiculously expensive. And I didn't care about making this review that much. So, I sought an alternate solution. E-books. E-books are like regular books, but not... E-books are like regular books, but electronic. So I found a place online where I could purchase an ebook version of the 2014 re-release of Koakuma Meringue, a Japanese site called Bookwalker. And for 500 something yen, finally this book would be mine. But there was another roadblock. My credit card for some reason wouldn't work on this site, and when I attempted to pay with PayPal it wouldn't allow me to because of some regional nonsense. I looked at their other payment options and briefly considered creating a web money account to try and pay using that option, but doing some brief research I found out it was a Russian company that was a little shady, and if there's one thing The Sopranos taught me, it's that Russians are crafty and you should never trust a single one of them ever with anything in any circumstance, ever! So, I had to move my search to another site. Amazon. The Koakuma ebook was also available on the Japanese version of Amazon, but when I logged into my Amazon account I found that it had been suspended for suspicious activity. So I logged into my other Amazon account with another one of my emails and proceeded. But another problem arose. When I logged into my Amazon account, I was now unable to access the link, the Japanese Amazon link that had the ebook, and the ebook would not show up in searches on this non-Japanese, localized to me version of Amazon, so I could not access or purchase this book yet again. I was thwarted. However, the solution was simple. I created another Amazon account with another email on the Japanese version of Amazon, so this was a Japanese account, and now I could access the manga and purchase it, but I struck another roadblock. Even though I had created a Japanese Amazon account, somehow Amazon was still able to pinpoint my location. They still knew where I was, and they knew I was not in Japan, which is kind of weird and creepy that they know my location, that's something that they have access to. I feel like that shouldn't be a thing, but it was. But I wouldn't stop here. I was determined to read the last 4 chapters of Koakuma Meringue, so there was only one solution, and it was clear as day. I had to purchase a VPN. And what was the first VPN that came to mind? The obvious only choice when purchasing a VPN creator generator thing. I went to ExpressVPN. So I went to purchase ExpressVPN and opted to pay with PayPal, and that's when I struck another problem. I was stuck on this screen for minutes and minutes and minutes, unable to proceed and unable to click back because of what the page told me. But eventually I was forced to ignore the suggestions of the website, and I clicked back and I attempted to repurchase ExpressVPN once again with PayPal, and once again I was stuck on this screen for minutes, tens of minutes stuck here. And that's when it dawned on me, why are all these companies making it so difficult for me to give them money? It defies logic. And I don't have an answer for you why they make it so difficult, but they make it god fucking difficult. So I ignored the advice of ExpressVPN and clicked back again, and this time I opted to pay by credit card, and the payment went through immediately. an exhausting experience. But now, all problems were behind me, all road ahead were clear. I would finally get my hands on Koakuma Meringue. So I booted up ExpressVPN and set my location to Japan and connected it, and then went to Amazon to finally purchase Koakuma Meringue. But not so fast. Even though this was an ebook and all I would be receiving would be a digital copy of the book through Kindle, Amazon still wanted me to enter a physical address, attach it to my account to proceed. Now this was a problem because I, believe it or not, do not have an address in Japan. Now while some Reddit threads claim that I could just enter any old business address that I could find online for my address and it wouldn't matter since I was buying digital goods, I'm not sure I could trust them because they were Redditors, but also because some of their other advice was wrong too. They never mentioned anything about needing a VPN to trick Amazon into thinking I'm in Japan. So their advice was from years ago. It was outdated, unreliable, and I couldn't trust it. And I began to think, you know what? I don't really like Amazon. They're kind of corrupt and I don't really care for them and I'm kind of over this whole thing. So fuck Amazon. They could go fuck themselves. I was going to take my newly acquired VPN and head back to Book Walker. So back over on Book Walker and using my new VPN set to Japan, I now found myself able to use PayPal as a payment option to purchase Koakuma Meringue ebook. And so, I purchased it. And finally, at long last, the moment had come. Koakuma Meringue was in my possession, and I could read it. There was just one small hiccup in my plan. I do not speak a lick of Japanese, and I damn sure can't read a lick of it either. Luckily, I knew exactly what needed to be done. So I headed over to Duolingo to learn how to read and speak Japanese.
し に に し に
1
But then, it occurred to me, these exercises were stupid and weren't helping me learn anything at all. And I also didn't want to create another account. And I also didn't realize Duolingo was free, so originally I was going to say I didn't want to proceed down that route because I didn't want to pay anymore. But apparently Duolingo is free! But it's just stupid and not good for learning anything, so we would have to find another solution. And another solution I did find, an online translating website where I could translate the manga. But we hit another wall. Text not recognized. This was going to be harder than I could have ever imagined. So I downloaded a couple of translator apps and tried one of them, and it seemed like maybe finally this was going to work, slow but steadily. But then, poof, blank page. This app was no good at all. We would have to find another way. So I tried a different translating application, one that had a live translating feature where you could just scan the thing and it would translate. But as you can see, this was clearly not adequate and was substandard technology. Things were looking down here, and they would only go from bad to even badder For this is when I made a grave mistake. While having the book open, just looking at it, still trying to find translators, I made the decision that to turn the VPN off, and I was hit with an error. Bookwalker had discovered that I wasn't really in Japan, and they had revoked my access to the book that I had already paid for. So I got out of it completely and I went back into it, and I could still the same error. I logged out of my Bookwalker account, logged back into my Bookwalker account, still the same issue. I turned my laptop off completely, turned it back on, tried again, still I could not read the book I had purchased. I had already turned the VPN back on and tried again, and I just couldn't get back in. I couldn't get back in. We had hit a dead end. But I saw a crack of light. I knew there was one way we could still proceed. I would have to create another Bookwalker account with a different email and purchase the book again, and this time not make the foolish mistake of turning the VPN off. So that's what I did. I made another account, and just as I was getting prepared to purchase the book again, I was like, wait a second, let me go back to my original account and check one last time and make sure it's still not working. So with my VPN on, I went back, tried again, and to my shock, I could actually read it again. It was working. Inexplicably unexplainable. I had being gifted access back to read the book I had paid for. So we were back in business, folks. So I found another website for an online translator and tested it out, and surprise, surprise, it seems to be working. So we continued, and I tried to translate the next page, and that's where once again we fell flat on our face in a pile of donkey shit. Try again in 2 hours. No, I don't think I will. I don't have the time to wait 2 hours in between pages. This will not do. There must be another way. And there was. Fiverr. Fiverr is a website where for $5 you can make people do things for you that you are not capable of doing yourself, ranging from voice acting to voicing something for you to translating something for you. But there was only one catch. Nothing on Fiverr actually costs $5. It's all far more expensive than that. And it would all take far too long. I needed this translated now. I had to get this episode out in a day or two. I could not wait weeks and pay hundreds of dollars for someone to translate this for me. Fiverr was not going to work. We had to find a way to translate it ourselves. So I went back to one of the applications I tried before, the one that had that live translate feature, but instead this time I tried to not live translate. Tried to just take a picture, scan it, takes, a couple of seconds, but this time it actually seemed to be working. Maybe we were getting somewhere. Maybe this was the solution. If we could translate a full page and then continue on, this would be proof of concept. This could be the way forward for us to finally complete this task. But then, disaster struck. Error. Once again, they had rediscovered that I was not actually in Japan. I had not turned my VPN off this time. It was still on and working, but somehow they had found me out, and they had once again revoked my access to reading this. And with the clock struck 2 a.m, I had lost hope. I was distraught. I couldn't believe it. And I decided to call it a night, so I went to bed agitated, struggling to fall asleep. I felt completely and utterly defeated, and I thought that would truly be the end. Koakuma Meringue would forever remain on hold on my anime list. There was nothing that could be done. I had been at my wit's end for quite some time, and this was the final straw that broke my back. I just thought that this entire episode might be over. This review could not be done. How could I review something that I haven't finished reading? I would not be able to give it a thorough review, and thus I could not. It would be irresponsible of me to review something that I have not finished reading, and thus the review would have to be cancelled in good faith. Even if I still made the review, it would be a shell of what it could have been. It would just be a marker of my most monumental public of failures. I would be shamed and ridiculed by the masses, and I deserved it. Maybe I would still upload it and face my eternal wrath. That was my punishment that I deserved for my failures. So I gave up. I quit. And eventually, I was able to doze off and fall asleep and disappear into the night. A broken man. But the following morning, when I awoke, I realised that I wasn't quite ready to give it up. I couldn't quite let go just yet. So I decided to do a little digging, and that's when things got really interesting. I looked a little further in to Error 998 and discovered what Error 9898 really was, and I began to realise I don't think it's because I'm not in Japan at all, actually. It's something to do with multiple different places accessing the same thing at once, not allowed, different browsers, etc, etc. Wait a minute. Perhaps right now my VPN is doing more harm than good. So I turned off the VPN, I did not connect it, and I went back to Bookwalker, and to my elation, I could access the book and it was not booting me out. This was it. I brought back the translator app scan feature and I began to scan the parts of the first page that I was not able to do last night. And we did it. It worked. Could this finally be it? So we went on to the next page, and then disaster struck again. But not actually, for this was not error 998. This was a different error. This was because I had to log back into my account. I had left it open on this page overnight, and now when I went to continue reading, it was like it now realized like, hey, you gotta log back into your account. So I just had to log back into my account, and then I was able to proceed. And slowly but surely, this was proving to be an effective method. Speech bubble by speech bubble, I was able to scan the manga and get a mostly accurate translation. So this was the way forward. This is how I was going to read the final 4 chapters of Koakuma Meringue. And so I did. I waited until later that day, later at night when I had some free time, and I went back and I now sat down ready, prepared to read all of Koakuma Meringue. The last 4 chapters, something like 70 pages. Translating one speech bubble at a time, I was ready to do it. So, I pulled an all-nighter, translating and reading tirelessly. And by the crack of dawn, I was nearly complete. And by this stage, I felt like some of it had actually started to soak in. I felt like I had learnt a little Japanese along the way. Some of it had stuck. Ni hao? Ni hao? Baka. And finally, a few hours later, I was done. I had officially read all of Koakuma Meringue, aka this Pretty Little Devil Meringue or whatever. I had read it all, and now I could finally give myself the satisfaction of changing the status from on hold to completed. A rush of joy and ecstasy flowed through me. My morning wood felt ready to explode, but I held it in and just soaked, basked in this glorious feeling. But also, most importantly, now that I have finished reading Koakuma Meringue, I can finally give it an actual proper review. So, without further ado, let us begin the review. For a rating, I would give it a 6.357 out of 10. And I guess that pretty much sums things up. So, thanks for watching. And as always, who killed the world?
It's just another Tuesday.